let's hop into Kopari. Obviously, you mentioned it. You know, the last year, and Kopari was a great brand before, but I think the last year has been like really impressive. I mean, I cited the stats earlier. You know, when you came in, I would hope that a lot of this, came from you, right? So when you came in, what were some of the things that you saw opportunity for kind of growth, improvement, whatever you want to call it, that
Yeah.
you implemented that you think had an impact on it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would like to say like my impact was like day one, but like it wasn't. Trust me,
Of course, yeah,
it
you get to know
definitely.
the brand, the
Yeah,
DNA, yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of long-term things that needed to be, done, and not fixed, but really focused on. And then some short-term things that, won some immediate ROI. So the long-term things, and this continues to evolve every single day, but it's that articulation of the DNA. Kopari is one of the richest when it comes to the DNA. I remember I learned about the brand because my team, my very young and very cool team at Benefit, back then was like, have you heard of this brand? It's amazing, from San Diego. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just keep tabs on this brand, just keep my eye out for it. And I remember thinking that it just is so rich in DNA, founded in La Jolla with 4 founders, and really this clean way of living, articulating that into clean formulations. That's one of the first beauty brands that was super clean in the category, like some 5 years ago, right?
Yep.
When there wasn't this big category, explosion. So we continue to work on articulating the DNA and torturing my founders and being like, why the wave? Like, why the turquoise? Like, why coconuts? And really torturing them, quite frankly. And then, building out a product architecture that is specific for prestige beauty, which is where we operate in, right? We had come out with a couple of products that was within personal care, and our deodorant took off, and it's an amazing formula, but that's not necessarily the business model that we want to operate in today. We are a prestige body care and skincare brand with personal care as an extension of our current lineup. And how do we think about our assortment and our architecture in the long run to fulfill that consumer demand in the places where we sell? And so really being able to clarify that and create a framework around that for the long term has been helpful, I believe. And then organic awareness. Again, like, people who know us love us, but not a lot of people know us, right? So organic awareness through our community and really leveraging all the different ways that we could increase that top line awareness. I also am a big believer in being the owner of our own destiny and articulating what our destiny is. And because our D2C business is such a big percentage of our total business, we were able to drop newness when we wanted, how we wanted, and help prop up that traffic issue in the era of iOS 14, right?
Yep.
And so we see it in the results. You named the EMV, but also our social engagement is crazy these days. We were last among the brands that we tracked in the beginning of 2020 in terms of engagement. And this year alone, we've garnered the #1 position in engagement 4 months out of the year. So it's resonating with our consumers as we think about newness and core and that mix. And we're continuing to ride on that wave. And 2022 is, really when you're going to see some amazing stuff from us.
Let's dive into that organic awareness piece, because I think that the results over the last year are like super impressive. And obviously that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. And there's a lot of people that want to do what you did, right? Which is go from number 60 to number 20, whatever, and blah, blah, blah.
Number 12 in March. Just want to
Yes.
point that out. Just want to point that out.
Heading in the right direction too. So get real tactical with me there. Actually, before we get that, you said D2C is such a big portion of your business. How big? Is it 10%?
I'm not going to tell you that. Come on, Connor. Why are you asking me that? I'm not going to tell you that.
Out there. I gotta ask. Okay. Well, I think your point though on not being beholden. I tried. Not being beholden to, some third party because you control your own destiny is like a really big benefit of like being so strong, direct to consumer. Okay, let's go back to awareness. I tried there. Let's go back to let's see if let it slip. So awareness. What has worked? Like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing that you think are really innovative?
Yeah, I mean, it's back to the basics, I believe, around um, the consumer journey, the consumer loop, and really creating that loop around advocacy, and back to the basics around positioning, product positioning, and hierarchy of communication. People will say, "Oh, try this tactic and try that tactic and try this platform or try this tool."
Mm-hmm. Right.
um, and like tactics and levers are good. However, I think fundamentally your brand has to not only really resonate with your target audience, but have the right assortment, the right pricing, the right distribution, all the basics, like the 4 P's of marketing, right?
Yeah.
Um, to then add a layer of tactics. And so if you do tactics without having that foundational work, like it's going to fall flat. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we tried that tactic a year ago and it didn't work. Well, a year ago, like, your framework or your architecture may not have been in the right place, right? So I think about that a lot. Like, when can we start utilizing some, really amazing tactics? And I have a couple of ideas, um, but we're not there yet. You'll start to see some of it in this year once we get our architecture and assortment and pricing right. And so there's a lot of work done on the foundational pieces. And it's interesting because being able to affect that right now is super exhilarating and so much like brain work that it's super fun to dive into.
Yeah, it's funny the way that you talked about that. I mean, it just makes me think about this podcast, right? Like this podcast is a tactic. And like if we had tried to do this when we started Tribe, it wouldn't have gone anywhere, right? Because we didn't know anybody, nobody knew us, we had no credibility, etc. But now, because we've built relationships over years and years and years and years, it just makes it much easier to actually do it. And we built an audience that trusts us, right? When we talk
Yeah.
about things. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Thinking of tactics in context of like who you are, where you are in the journey, like what are you actually able to do versus not do is super important.